How's it hanging, guys? Aaron from PhoneDog.com here, and the LG Revolution is finally in the house. It's Verizon's third 4G LTE device, but the question has to be asked. You've got the HTC ThunderBolt, the Samsung DROID Charge, and now this. Which one's the best? Should you go with this when it only has a 5-megapixel camera and it's the same price tier as the HTC ThunderBolt right there at that 250 mark? We're going to try to find that out and more in the full review. First, special thanks to our guys at Best Buy, because thanks to them, you're getting hooked up with awesome phones just like this in our One Paw Bandit game. So when you go into Best Buy Mobile, you walk out working, they help you set up email, web, and more. Enough of that, let's get into it. LG Revolution, is this the best 4G LTE device? So here we go, starting part 2. I actually started in part 1 looking at Netflix, and I didn't log in because it needed to be updated and a couple other things. But here's what the Netflix interface looks like. First Android device to ship with it out of the box. So you have home, genres, search, and queue, your Netflix queue. So I happen to be watching Saturday Night Live, the 2000 presidential debate. So I can resume right there and pick back up from where I left off. So it's nice to have this pre-installed on the device, and it's taking its time there. There we go. Okay, so loading up now. So you do have this, and the cool feature is, thanks to the HDMI port that you have on this side, you can plug it in. Let's say you're traveling. I happen to be going to San Francisco tomorrow for the Reader Meetup. I could use this in the hotel room and watch TV at night, so it's a nice touch.
An undecided voter watching tonight.
So you can see.
Would it be fair for that voter to suspect that in preparing for this debate?
So you can see the speaker's nice and loud. It's here on the back. And then there it is. So, and again, you can plug that into the TV if you wanted to watch it. I happen to love the old presidential debate stuff that SNL did. So that's on there, and that's a nice touch. Now, I talked about this earlier in part 1, but this is one of the few high-end Verizon devices to come with Bing instead of Google. So you'll notice Bing everywhere. You'll see it here. You'll see Bing Maps on this device. And you know, a lot of people like Google and prefer Google. I like Google and prefer Google, but I haven't had a problem with Bing. It's been certainly a decent substitute, if you will, to Google. I haven't had any huge problems with it. That said, you can download Google Maps from the Android market, and if you really want to de-Bing it, as they're calling it on the internet, or the interwebs, the intertubes, you can root the device. Obviously, we don't condone that, but you can root the device and take advantage of Google from there. There are workarounds. You can see those on the internet. Bing's not that bad. Bing Maps I don't care for, but the search itself, pretty decent, and I've been using it and supplementing it with Google Maps, so not a huge problem. So we can load up Phone Dog. Ba-bam. Ba-bam! That's my new one-liner. Ba-bam. So you can see Phone Dog pops up right there. Give your smartphone a bone. Haha. So you get the idea. It's been a pretty decent search and haven't had any major problems with it. Now this is a segment of the video that I call, well, I don't really have a name for it, but this is where I get on Twitter and say, you know, what would you like to see or what would you like to know about the LG Revolution? And I answer those questions. Question 1, is it an iPhone? No, it's not an iPhone. Looks TouchWiz S. Does it perform the same? Well, it's very similar in terms of the user interface, but no, I think TouchWiz, particularly with the Galaxy S2, with TouchWiz 4.0, it's a significant improvement. It works very well. This is definitely, to me, I can tell right out of the box that this is generation 1. I don't care for the interface. You may love it. It's not my favorite. Screen type, TFT SLCD, regular screen, internal storage. Let's take a look at that. It's not a QHD display or anything of that nature. Let's go in here and take a look at SD card and phone storage, and let's see what's available. Internal phone storage, 1.28 gigabytes, and then your internal memory. Now this has a 16 gigabytes of internal memory and a 16 gigabyte micro SD card pre-installed thanks to Verizon. So you have a total of 32 gigabytes out of the box that you can use to your heart's content. So this is really being touted as a media device, which is certainly nice. So it's Android 2.2, and to give you the exact, it's 2.2.2, 3 times fast. So that's pretty funny. Can it be de-binged easily? I talked a little bit about that. You can remove Bing. There are workarounds. You find those on the internet. You can either root the device, and then there are some special workarounds to get it back on the phone. That said, Bing hasn't been that bad at all. Let's take a look at the camera. 5-megapixel camera on this. Again, shoots 720p HD videos. And be sure to head over to the YouTube page so you can take a look at those and tell me what you think. If you like it, you don't like it, I'll give you a spoiler. Audio quality is pretty bad. Video quality is pretty decent. So let's get this T-Mobile pin in here and see if we can focus in on it. And actually, let's get the flash turned off. So we have enough light in here, and you can see right there, I can flip the camera around. You can look at some of the editing options. things I can do with white balance, color effect, shot mode, things like that. But what I really want to do is I want to kill the flash. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to turn that off, and we're going to zoom in on that so you can get, let's do a zoom in actually of the Galaxy S2 box here. That's what we'll do. Okay, but bam, there it is. Galaxy S2 box. It's definitely clear. It's not a bad picture, and actually out of the 5 megapixel options, with the exception of the iPhone, which I still think has the best 5 megapixel camera in the industry, it's definitely a good, when you look at like other 5 megapixel options on Android devices like the G2 and some of the others, it's definitely a good picture, and to have that 720p video capability is a nice touch. Let's go in here and do quadrant standard so you can see, and it's been pretty interesting. I haven't experienced any lag since I did a reset, but if you went back and looked at my first impressions videos, or first impressions post rather, you can see that I was having some trouble with lag, particularly when scrolling from screen to screen. I had some issues, and I found that there were some issues with the responsiveness of the display. I'd be hitting an app, you know, 1 or 2 times, or 2 or 3 times rather, before it would load up fully. It wouldn't always recognize my gestures, and I haven't had that problem since I reset the device. So maybe it was just a fluke, perhaps it's not an issue, but there are still some forum topics that I'm seeing with issues with the screen responsiveness. So something to keep in mind. Be sure to test it, take advantage of that return period, because so you don't get stuck for 2 years with a device that doesn't work the way you want it to work. But again, typing in terms of text, email is pretty responsive. The keyboard, the LG keyboard, you just have to be careful and learn the rhythm of the keyboard. You can always sideload keyboards. You can install, as you saw in the video, you can install non-Android market applications or sideload applications. So you can do things like Motorola's multi-touch keyboard, HTC Sense keyboard, etc. Whatever you want to do, you can sideload those in. But the LG keyboard has been relatively decent for me. So quadrant standard 1972. So it's a fast device, and actually if you compare these quadrant standard scores to the ones on the DROID Charge or the Thunderbolt, this is the fastest device out of the 3. So something to keep in mind. Again, remember battery was at 68%. When we started this, it's at 58 now. So this thing drops, and it drops very, very quickly. So can't harp on battery enough. I'm just not impressed with the battery life. So let's go into speed tests and take a look at some of the 4G speed tests. 4G's definitely leveled out. The speedtest.net app has caught up with it, and now we're getting some accurate readings as to what's going on. So we're going to pop up our server. Good. Looks good. Call quality has been very good on this device. I took it, I had to travel this past weekend and took it with me, and I was pretty impressed with the call quality. It's decent. You know, it's nothing to write home about. It's not phenomenal. I mean, I look at Motorola's RF performance, and it's a little bit better than this, but it was definitely good, and the speaker's nice and loud, didn't have any issues there. So you can see about 9 megabits or 8.66 megabits per second on the download, 4.65 megabits per second on the upload. So a little slower than what we saw when it was blazing through at like 12, 14 megabits per second. It's definitely starting to slow down and average out, as opposed to you know, what we saw when 4G LTE first launched. I mean, you can see the market's getting a little saturated. About 10 megabits per second there, 9.5, and 4 megabits per second on the upload. So definitely good numbers, and another good 4G device from Verizon. Is this the one to get of the 3? Well, you know, you're going to have to choose for yourself and see if you like the device with, I just don't see any. I guess my concern with this device was, if I'm being completely honest, there's no real game changer here. There's nothing that's really, you know, pushing people to this device as opposed to the Thunderbolt. You can look at the DROID Charge and say, well, it has a Super AMOLED Plus display, you know, or Super AMOLED Plus display on the DROID Charge, or you know, it has Android 2.2 with TouchWiz, and some people like that. Or you can look at something like the Thunderbolt and say it has a kickstand, or it has an 8 megapixel camera that shoots 720p. There's really no defining feature on this that's going to push people to it. And if it were $199, I'd say, hey, that's a great price. The price is what pushes people to it, but it's at that same price tier as the Thunderbolt. So I think people are really going to struggle between this and the Thunderbolt, despite the fact that the Thunderbolt's battery life isn't the best in the world. But all in all, you know, it's a decent device. I think it could have been more revolutionary. You know, if you read back to my first impressions, there are definitely some issues I've had with it. You can see, you know, what I was having initially was, when I was scrolling like this, it wasn't always scrolling smoothly. It was lagging and stopping and stuttering. But this one, now that it's reset, doesn't seem to be as much of an issue. It's loading pretty quickly. So very possible that it was just some issues with the device. It just needed to be reset. So good device. You know, it's a good addition to Verizon's lineup. It's always nice to be there. It's going to be one of the first devices to get VO LTE, voice over LTE, when they make the switch over. So this is the one they've been testing it with. So this should be the first one that gets it. You got that front-facing camera as well. 4G connectivity is still good. And hey, while they have it, take advantage of the fact that it's unlimited data before they start capping their data supposedly later this year. Take advantage of those 4G devices. Much more coverage to come on PhoneDog.com of the LG Revolution. Let me know what you think. You bought the device? I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, PhoneDog_Aaron, and on Facebook at Facebook.com/AB or PhoneDogAB. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you like it, you returned it, exchanged it for something else, or what. And be sure to follow us on Facebook at Facebook.com/PhoneDog, or like us rather. Hey, follow, like us, same thing. At Facebook.com/PhoneDog. We're always doing cool contests. We have more cool contests coming. So keep that in mind and be sure to like us on Facebook. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.